This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Kevin Tucker and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic! What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is September 5th, 2024. Jonathan Osborne here, as always, joined by my co-host, Kevin Tucker. Kevin Tucker, the first of our Eastern Conference preview series today. Starting off with the New York Knicks, our friend Andrew Claudio over at Knicks Film School. How are you doing, Kevin?
I'm doing great. It's a big day today. Kickoff of the NFL season. Pretty exciting.
Yep.
Professional football kicks off. You know, we've had college football for several weeks. Well, some people have had college football. My team hasn't really played any college football yet, but hoping they'll show up in a couple weeks. But
have you
anyway,
seen the meme of the different shapes where it's like hexagon, octagon, and then it's the Seminoles logo that says season gone?
Yeah. It's a weird place. You know, we didn't lose for 2 years basically. Well, a year and a half, and then you lose 2 in a row. It's a weird feeling, but hey, it's okay. But this is a basketball podcast, and yeah, we got to talk to Andrew Claudio, good friend of our show. We've been on his show many times. You know, those guys are crazy. They do previews for every game of the season with the someone from the opposing team, right? Which is like when we talk about Knicks Film School, we've talked to them before. Those guys go crazy with the content, and so I have big respect for Andrew and for that whole team over there. But anyway, all I have to say, we've been on their show many times. So finally, since we're doing these Eastern Conference previews got to have Andrew on, and it was a lot of fun. And so you all definitely want to stick around to watch or hear that.
And forget about the work that goes into actually recording the show, like finding guests and coordinating. All of that is incredibly impressive, and so much goes into that. And we give them all the credit in the world. Now, he wasn't so kind to our Orlando Magic at one point during that conversation.
He was not that bad. He was that bad.
I didn't like it. Okay,
he was honest.
The very biased Magic fan in me didn't appreciate it, and I hope that we end up making him eat his words. Probably not likely, but man, would I be posting that clip everywhere. You better believe it. But a big thank you to our friend Andrew Claudio. We'll get to that conversation in just a few minutes, but we do have some Orlando Magic related news. Mac McClung, who played for the Osceola Magic last year, was the G League MVP. He has signed an Exhibit 10 deal with the Orlando Magic, which paves the way for him to sign, hopefully, an eventual two-way contract with the Orlando Magic. The Magic still have two-way spots available on their roster. And when it was clear that we were moving on from Admiral Schofield and Kevon Harris, I think Mac's name was one of the first that came up as like a really good candidate for one of those two-way spots, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a fan favorite everywhere he goes. Everyone loves Mac McClung. Not just an electric basketball player, but obviously a very kind human. You know, if you ever been able to spend time around him, everyone says great guy. And so obviously I think most people are rooting for him. Would love to see him get that two-way spot. That way he can obviously still, get some run at Osceola and impress there, as you said, MVP. But again, it opens the door for him to see some time on the court in the NBA. Again, with the way the NBA is structured these days, two-way guys, if they're seeing the floor, something's really gone wrong. But it at least opens the possibility for him. So anyway, yeah, definitely excited for that. And glad to see at least that question mark is answered. A lot of people have been wondering about Mac. And so now we know the Exhibit 10 with the Magic.
And last year in 14 games for Osceola, 25.2 points per game, shot 47% from the floor, 36% from behind the arc, added 4.5 rebounds and just under 6 assists a game. Obviously, he was really good. That's why he was the G League MVP last year. And he is the reigning and back-to-back NBA Slam Dunk competition winner. So I don't know if he's going to do that again. Maybe, maybe not. But to Kevin's point, like this short amount of time that we got to spend around him last year at Media Day, and it seems like there's a potential that we'll spend some more time around him this year at Media Day, just seems like super down to earth, super humble. Everybody that we talk with in the organization loves him and is rooting for him. So really excited about Mac McClung having the Exhibit 10. And hopefully, again, that will turn into a two-way contract with the Magic. Or maybe he earns a job, on a main roster somewhere around the league. I know that is the goal for him, as it should be. All right, we don't really have a lot of other things to talk to today. Our conversation with Andrew Claudio is pretty good size. So we are going to go ahead and get into the first of our Eastern Conference preview series, starting with the New York Knicks and our friend Andrew Claudio from Knicks Film School. And now, Orlando Magic fans, we are starting the first of, I think we're going to do 4 or 5 of these we talked about, but our Eastern Conference preview series, we are starting in the Northeast with the New York Knicks, and our friend Andrew Claudio from Knicks Film School has joined the show today to talk about his New York Knicks. So first of all, Andrew, thanks for finally joining our show. Myself and Kevin, we've appeared on the preview pods for Knicks Film School a few times, but now you are here on the Six Man Show. How are you doing, my friend? Thanks for taking the time.
I'm doing great. I'm doing even better now that I finally get to make my appearance, my debut on the Sixth Man Show. Been a fan of you guys forever. I'm glad that the Magic are good and in playoff contention because as talented as you all are, more people should see it. So I'm excited to be here, John, and of course, Kevin. Good to see you fellas.
Oh, appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Yeah, we're big fans of Knicks Film School. Those that have watched or listened to our show before, we've obviously referenced you guys a lot. You guys do some crazy, awesome content. And so we'll say this a couple more times today, but obviously definitely go check out Knicks Film School over on YouTube and podcast feeds and all that.
Blue Wire contingent.
Indeed.
Yeah. You know?
Still Blue Wire.
Fellow Blue Wire podcast as well. So that's pretty awesome. Andrew, I want to start with this. People around the league, they think of New York and the Knicks, and they think about the fans. Like, Knicks fans are known to be some of the most passionate and wild and crazy, and maybe like the most roller coaster of emotions of fan group that there is out there. First off, what is that like to be a part of that group? And second off, like, where does that come from? Where does the passion for Knicks basketball come from?
So I got to be honest. You sent me the rundown earlier this morning, and this was the first question. I've been thinking about it all day. It's just consumed my day of how do I answer? Why are we like this? And Jonathan, you're from up here, right? You're from Jersey, right? Or you from
I was born
area?
there. You know, I've definitely got some ties to that area. You know,
You're a Yankee
I'm
fan.
raised by. That is correct. I'm a Giants fan.
Right.
I'm raised by a New Yorker in a New Jersey, and I don't know what exactly you would call that, but yeah, it runs in my blood.
So I don't know if you could kind of speak to this, but you actually kind of did just give away the best answer I could come up with, and it's that we're not like, it's not an acquired darkness. We're born into it, you know, whatever the Bane line was from Dark Knight Rises. Like, I have to say, that was outstanding, by the way.
Thank you.
Wow. I may go watch that after this. I look at my devotion to the teams I root for, and I understand the irrational part of it. I'm able to contextualize what sports is. I'm able to walk away with it when I have come back down with sound analysis, and also the perspective that, like, this is entertainment. Like, this doesn't matter at the end of the day. But in the middle of a playoff game, I see red, and I want blood, and I want, like, Joel Embiid, something bad to happen to him. And, like, I cannot account for the things that I may say or think or tweet during games. And as far as where that comes from, it's because, and I don't know, I mean, I'm speaking to a Yankee fan and a Giant fan here as well. I don't know if it's the fact that there's two of everything here, that combative nature is just so entrenched in the sports conversation. Like, in Orlando, you have the Magic, like, you have that option. I'm sure, like, there are Heat fans nearby, and there may be, like, some Hawks fans from up north, as far as the regions go. But, like, in my family, it's 50-50 Mets Yankees. It's 50-50 Jets Giants. This Nets thing was cute, but I'm glad they're going to go back to irrelevance. But the best example I can, or I guess the answer I can give, is the fact that, you know, we're, as New Yorkers, we're two of the two sides of a different coin, or the same coin, in that, like, if you're a Yankee fan, you have the expectations of winning. If you're a Mets fan, you have the, like, just happy to be here frustrations of failure. And it's a similar feeling with the Jets and Giants fan, and we're all Knicks fans. So every emotion gets directed at our basketball team, which is why we're just happy to be here. But also, when we're winning, it's like, oh my gosh, we're never going to lose again. So that's the best answer I could come up with, is that theory that it's the sports that have two teams for us to pay attention to. There's a lot of emotion there. And then all of us come together to root for the New York Knicks.
speaking of never losing again, the mid-season trade for OG Anunoby, the Knicks start to go on a run. That whole, time in the season, he goes down. Obviously, you were dealing with the Julius Randle injury for a good chunk of the year, and then you go on this like inspired playoff run. Like, if you had to put last season into words, like how much fun was that?
Oh man, so Benji Ritholtz, one of our film analysts at Knicks Film School, he described it as like a religious experience at times because we couldn't fully fathom how they were doing it. Because you mentioned the Anunoby part of it. They'd make the trade. They were kind of a boring team for the first 2 months of the season. They'd have moments. RJ would have a good game. We'd get in a fight about how many minutes Quickly is playing and whatnot. Then they make the trade and they go 12-2 with Anunoby and Brunson and Randall in the lineup. And actually, let me rephrase that. 11-1 because Brunson didn't play 2 of those games. They were 1-1 in those games. And it was this very clear formula of if Anunoby plays, we win. And then Randall goes down against the hated Miami Heat. And then going into the next game, we were curious what the Julius Randle with life without him would look like because we now have an Anunoby. And then he just suddenly showed up day to day. Like, oh, he's a sore elbow. He's just going to miss a game. Oh, he's just going to miss a week. He just needs to rest. Oh, he's out a month. Oh, he got surgery. And it was this compiling thing of when do we get back to feel that January. But what ended up happening throughout the season, to answer your question, is this experience of like, I'm not disappointed by any loss because I understand how shorthanded they are. And yet they're in every game anyway. There's no business for this team to be like competing with the Celtics tied at halftime when they don't have anywhere near the talent. Brunson's out tonight. Oh no. Well, I guess we're going to lose. Oh, we came back and beat the Cavs anyway on national television. Great. And that followed a theme throughout the next like 2-3 months until Anunoby came back and just carried into the playoffs where you wondered if this team can stay healthy because you've been playing shorthanded all year. Can they, get over the hump? And just one after one, the injuries start to happen in the playoffs. Now, there's been a lot of talk of how those injuries happened and why those injuries happened. I know I have my thoughts, but the way this team won our hearts with the next man up mentality and how hard they played and how no excuses were made anytime they lost someone, you understood why they might fall short, but you were proud of the effort they were giving you. And that, look, not to just sound like corny and cliche, it's kind of the New York attitude. Oh, I missed this train. I guess I'm walking 4 blocks. Oh, I missed this cab. I guess I'm hailing the next one. And it's the very much the workman's mentality that it spoke to the city and it won our hearts over.
Well, I'm curious to piggyback off of that, talk about being a religious experience and obviously, kind of unprecedented with the injuries and fighting through all that. Where does the season rank as far as, I don't know how long you've been watching the Knicks, but in the last, 20, 30 years, for me, obviously, I've only been watching basketball since the 90s. So I can think about the late Patrick Ewing era and on. And so I'm curious for you and for Knicks fans, it was the last season like one of your favorites in at least a long time? Or like, where does maybe that rank amongst some of the others?
So I don't know if you guys know this. Knicks haven't had many good seasons to choose from over the last 2 decades. So it has to go back to the 90s. The only place I could go to is 99. This for those for Magic fans who don't know, in 1999, that was a strike shortened season where the NBA only played 50 games. The Knicks, for most of the year, were a ragtag group that it was what you're wondering if they should move on from Patrick Ewing and kind of devote themselves into a bit of a rebuild. Obviously, Michael Jordan had left the league the year before, so there was this notion that the league was in transition, and obviously the labor dispute that led to the shortened season. They squeaked their way into the playoffs with a couple wins at the end of the 8th seed, and then they go on this run to make the NBA Finals. At the time, it's the first 8th seed to ever make the NBA Finals, and that was a team that won a lot of hearts and got Jeff Van Gundy a contract extension. It's the only competition for it. I'm a big Carmelo Anthony fan. That 2013 team that won 54 games was fun. That was always a very short-term thing. Like Jason Kidd was on that team at 39 years old. Like Rasheed Wallace, Kurt Thomas, Marcus Camby, Kenyon Martin. Like They very much went to the nursing home of the NBA and said, you got another season in you. Come on. We got a roster spot. Why not? And, that was very short lived. This felt like kind of the start of something. And I again, to speak to the religious part of it, you believed in this team. You didn't have any understanding. That's like what I'm not trying to get. With you two, I could actually get scriptural on this. Like, with the faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. I had no evidence that the Knicks would be good or win this game because of how shorthanded, but I had faith because they continued to reward said faith, and they made us believers last season.
Now, we talked about Julius Randle going down, at around the midway point of the season, and the Knicks do go on this run, and like you said, like this playoff run where there are games that just doesn't seem like they should win, and they are able to win games in the middle of that stretch. Some people, there's a narrative out there that maybe the Knicks are better without Julius Randle. What's your overall take on Julius?
Who said that? Whoever had a conversation about Julius Randle, whether the Knicks are better off without him?
What are your thoughts?
Can I do the worst possible podcast guest thing and ask you guys the question? Because it's the $1 million question in New York. Are they better without Julius? Is Julius the guy that should be traded? Would they have been better off if he was in the Mikal Bridges trade? So actually, I need a new perspective on this because my answer is I don't know. I want to see it. I think there's a small ball version of this team where he's great. I think he's the Hartenstein replacement, but I don't know. So I actually would love to hear what you guys think on this.
Kev? So, I'll just say I feel like obviously the games I watched the most intently are the ones against Orlando, but obviously I've seen some other games of his. I feel like from my seat, maybe consistency is often an issue with him, maybe, in the sense that I felt like some of the games against Orlando were absolute duds. Now, I don't know if part of that is because of our defense being as good as it was, last season, or if it's something else to that. But I felt like there were some times where he maybe didn't. Let me back up. Another thing I'll also add is sometimes down the stretch, I felt like they would go to him a lot, and sometimes that didn't always pay off. On the flip side, though, when you go to Jalen Brunson down the stretch, it seems like maybe more often than not that ends up working in the Knicks' favor. Again, that's from a standpoint of seeing 4 games thoroughly and a couple sprinkled throughout the rest of the year. So that's my initial thoughts on things.
Okay.
I'll say for me, in those games against the Magic, when it's Julius Randle time and he deems that it's Julius Randle time, I want the Knicks going back to Julius Randle. That's sort of what I'll say. And it's hard, to look from an outsider's perspective at the success that they were able to have without him in the lineup. And it does feel that everything should be going through Jalen Brunson all the time. And when Julius Randle sort of takes away from that, the offense for the Knicks doesn't seem as effective. And it seems like with this new, it's the Nova freaking Knicks over there now, right? You've got all of them. I just feel like they should probably lean more into that dynamic. But again, that's an outsider's perspective watching limited Knicks basketball outside of their matchups with the Magic.
I gotta say, both of your perspectives have been echoed by a lot of Knicks fans. That the end of I'd like to see the end of ISO Randle. That his consistency can be up and down, like you said, and the fact that look, there is a mental aspect of the game, and I want to be careful how I say this because I don't know Julius Randle, but I could just judge what's on the court. Is that you can fluster him very easily, and I remember a game in Orlando 2 years ago where he had a rough first half and got into it, got a technical right before halftime, and he got into it with Emmanuel quickly, and it became a talking point for a lot of Knicks fans over the next couple of days. Like he's fighting with his own teammates. I also remember the last game RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly played with the Knicks was in Orlando last year, and Randle was awesome. And there's those moments too, which is where I have to include that part. The moment you eliminate 25, 10, and 5 from your team, you have to find a way to replace it. Now, I think if there was ever a team equipped to replace that type of productivity, not all in one player, but with multiple pieces, it's probably the depth that the Nova Knicks have built. But I also wonder if like with Julius Randle, they can't still be awesome. And then you're eight deep with a really, really good team. This isn't a good stats bad team guy. This is a guy that's put up numbers on like 3 straight playoff teams. And, I guess 2 straight playoff teams because he missed last year, but like was part of teams that won for the Knicks and has made 2 All-NBA teams and 3 All-Star teams. He's probably the most complicated All-Star to evaluate, but I want to see it. There's the January version with Anunoby that I keep talking about. No disrespect to RJ Barrett, best wishes in Toronto, but what this team clearly needed was a 3-and-D wing who was good at shooting threes and good on the wings on defense. And he fit like a glove. And Julius Randle had better than his most improved player year, better than like that's the best version of Julius Randle I've ever seen, that January version of him. And if they can replicate that when they go into this season, I think there's a version of him that is even better than what we've seen so far.
All right, y'all, we are going to jump in here with some words from one of our sponsors, our friends over at Jam Hot Chicken. Jam Hot Chicken is proudly serving the city beautiful, bringing jams, culture, and hot chicken to the heart of Winter Park, located over at 400 West New England Avenue, Suite 13 in Hannibal Square over there in Winter Park, Florida. Follow them on all social media at Jam Hot Chicken and check out jamhotchickenfl.com to access the menu, online ordering, music playlists, all things Jam Hot. And Jam Hot Chicken ranked number 4 in Yelp's top Florida restaurants of 2023. There's a long-time listener and follower of the show that reached out to let me know that he is making the trip to Orlando. He lives, I think, in Toronto, making the trip to Orlando this year finally. I believe he's going to be at the home opener. And he asked, should I go to Jam Hot Chicken? Is it really worth the hype? Everybody thinks we're lying for some reason, Kevin, the amount that we talk about Jam Hot Chicken. Yes, they pay us to talk about it, but even if they weren't, I would tell people that if you're going to eat anywhere in Orlando, there's no better place than Jam Hot Chicken. So again, shout out to our friends over at Jam Hot Chicken.
Also, want to shout out the other sponsors of our show. Drew Gooden, Jonathan Borges, Magic Wired, Austin Vogt, and Carson Tulo. They are 5 of our patrons, specifically our Hall of Fame and Elite tier patrons who we shout out. Some of those on each and every episode. We want to give them a shout out today, but shout out to all of our patrons. Those are the people that financially support the Six Man Show. If you'd like to financially support us and help us do all the things that we do, from this show to watch parties and the Six Fan Show and all the other things that happen, you can visit us at the Six Man Show, where we have several different tiers that you can choose from to support us financially. Again, all the dollars that come in through that help make the Six Man Show possible. And so big shout out to all of our patrons. Thanks for supporting the Six Man Show. And now let's get back to our conversation with Andrew Claudio. Andrew, you talked about the depth of the Knicks. Obviously, we talked about some of the acquisitions, but losing a guy in the offseason, a guy that Magic fans were very interested in, Isaiah Hartenstein, played a big role for you guys. Not necessarily, you look at it, he's not someone that jumps off the stat sheet necessarily all the time, but what he does do as far as, his motor, his engine, his offensive rebounding, all those kinds of things, now gone to OKC, which, by the way, OKC stacked. That's crazy.
A little bit.
But for the Knicks, what does that look like now for the Knicks? Losing a guy like Isaiah Hartenstein coming into the season, how does that impact the big man depth, and kind of what are your thoughts on his departure?
Well, first of all, I want to say this, and I said this to my buddies over at the Chase Down, and I want to echo it here. With Hartenstein leaving New York to go to Oklahoma City, I never want to hear that there's big market bias ever again, that's a thing. I just never want to hear that the league wants the Knicks to succeed, so they make ways for no, they used a 35-year-old rule to make it so the Knicks were capped at what they could spend on Hartenstein, and Oklahoma City was able to get a New York free agent, a CAA client at that matter, to come to Oklahoma City to be a backup. So that, just want that on the record, if that's okay. Look, if they were able to retain Hartenstein, I would say they're the favorite to win the title. I would absolutely have them ahead of Boston. I think that only trading really picks for Bridges, and then you're able to bring back like one of the best starting fives in the league, and now just plug in Mikal Bridges into it. They would have so many looks to give people, and it's why, as a result, Hartenstein going to OKC, I apply that same analysis and those sensibilities to them. Look, look, I actually thought he was going to Orlando, which is why I was kind of hoping, at least be able to see him 4 times a year. But the reality of it is that they do have Mitchell Robinson, and like Precious Achiuwa showed himself to be a very serviceable backup big. There is, and this is the curiosity that a lot of Knicks fans have. There is a small ball version of this team that goes to Randall at the 5, and Anunoby at the 4, Bridges at the 3, and either Josh Hart or Dante DiVincenzo at the 2 with Jalen Brunson. That we're all curious, and it's not even so much that like could they play it. The roster kind of dictates they have to. Like I'm not. If a center's out, or if they're clearly getting like there's a stretch 5 that's killing them, why wouldn't they go small? And maybe Randall against the 5 on defense isn't what you always want. So like have Anunoby guard the center, and then you just use Randall as your center on offense instead. I think that's the most curious part of the Knicks big man depth is, do you kind of go full 2015 Warriors with it? Like we know that depth lineup before Kevin Durant got there as Draymond at the 5 with Harrison Barnes, Iguodala, Clay, and Steph. Now the Knicks don't have Steph Curry. Jalen Brunson's pretty good. I'll say, just personally, he's pretty good. Is there a Knicks depth lineup that they can pivot to? And like the Warriors, we I don't know if you guys feel, but it felt like every game the Warriors would play it like 20 minutes and it would run away with you. No, that lineup played 222 possessions. It was their 5th most used lineup that year, and it didn't become their starting 5 until game 4 of the NBA Finals. The following year, it was their 3rd most used lineup and was outscored in the playoffs. So I think if you don't feature it full time, but make it part of the catalog that you can go to, which is where I have questions for Tom Thibodeau, and I think he will. I think that's how you make up for the fact that Isaiah Hartenstein is no longer here, and your big man depth seems sparse.
You talked about another addition that you guys made this summer, which you didn't have to give up much to make the deal happen, but getting Mikal Bridges from the Nets and completing the infinity gauntlet of Villanova Wildcats up there in New York. But what do you think the addition of Bridges does to this team and does to the ceiling?
Well, I'll say this. As far as didn't give up much, I hope you guys enjoyed draft coverage on other channels going forward, because we don't have picks until 2032. But they didn't give up any players that mattered. Shout out to Bojan Bogdanovic. Did his job. He was salary filler in the Mikal Bridges trade. It leans into this culture that they're building with the Villanova thing. It's just like really cool. Like the first time that the 4 of these guys play on the court together, it's just going to be awesome. I think it does. We need to remind some people, especially in New York, that they never shared the court in Villanova. Josh Hart graduated, and then Dante DiVincenzo took his spot in the rotation. But the reality of that, what that trade was, is that yes, they completed the Villanova gauntlet, like you said. Also, Mikal Bridges is really good. Like, he was the 3rd best player on a team that made the finals. He's the perfect point of attack defender that allows Anunoby to roam as probably the best off-ball defender. And one of the frustrations I had in the playoffs, like, respect to Deuce McBride, thought he did a serviceable job on Tyrese Maxey. Maxey still averaged like 29, 6, and 4 in that series. Thought Deuce did a serviceable job guarding Tyrese Halliburton. Tyrese Halliburton put the Knicks to bed, as much as I think he's a front-running loser. Now we have a Mikal Bridges to answer at the point of attack with an Anunoby if you happen to get past him. And Mikal Bridges was going one-on-one with some of the best of them in many a playoff series with Phoenix, including Luka Doncic. So I'm intrigued by the offensive fit, which is going to play itself out. I'm excited by the defensive fit next to Anunoby. And look, 2 years ago when Brunson was starting to rise and show that, like, oh, he's more than just like a starter getting more minutes. No, he's actually like a borderline all-star potential. Then he became what he came last year. And the focus was, you need to just surround Brunson with defensive wings. But guess what? The Knicks went out and got 2 of the best wing defenders in the league, and they're great like 3-point shooters and corner shooters as well. So they built the team perfectly around Jalen Brunson, which is exactly what I wanted them to do.
Andrew, the acquisition of Mikal Bridges is cool and everything, but the big acquisition for the New York Knicks this summer was Chuma Okeke. And so we thought we'd take a turn here, Andrew. You've educated us and our listeners so much on the Knicks. We want to take a moment now to educate you on Chuma Okeke, which, by the way, I don't even think his contract is actually like a guaranteed deal. I gotta
be honest with you. I had to Google this to be like, who? I was like, wait, they did what? Okay.
Yes, the Knicks signed Chuma Okeke back in August.
Okay.
I think it's like a camp deal. I don't think it's a guarantee. I don't think it's an exhibit. I don't even know what contract.
I was going to say, is it an exhibit 10?
It might be an exhibit 10.
Okay.
I don't know. But we thought we'd just take a moment to educate you on Chuma Okeke. And I kind of want to put Jonathan on the spot and let him start and tell Andrew Claudio a little bit about Chuma Okeke and the journey that he had in Orlando and who he ended up becoming.
Please do.
Yeah. So Chuma's rookie year, which was the 2020-2021 season, he didn't really play all that much to start the year, but after the trade deadline, when the Magic traded away Aaron Gordon, Evan Fournier, and Nikola Vucevic, Chuma was like a big feature in Steve Clifford's offense after that. In the last several weeks of the regular season, we all thought that we had the second coming of Kawhi Leonard. We nicknamed Chuma Okeke Baby
with the
Kawhi.
We stuff, not we. Let's just some people.
Kevin
whatever.
just went full Uncle Phil.
A strong contingent of Magic fans believed this to be true. And so we drafted Chuma Okeke in 2019. He spent the entire first season rehabbing the torn ACL that he suffered at Auburn, their Final Four run. So he didn't play the first year. And like I said, the last few weeks of that initial regular season looked incredible. But then like literally starting the very next season, just started to have these like small like bone bruises in his knee and these smaller injuries that seemed to like totally sap him of all of his athleticism. And now I just don't know what he is. Like we thought he was going to be this 3-and-D guy. Now he's like sort of an okay defender, but not really a shooter. When he shoots threes, takes his guide hand completely off the ball and shoots it one-handed for some reason. And I'll close with this. If any Knicks fans out there want like 50, Chuma Okeke rookie cards that they're looking to buy, let me know, because now I have all these rookie cards that I bought when we thought he was Baby Kawhi and now they're worth nothing. So yeah, really funny guy, really like unintentionally funny. If he makes the roster, will absolutely be a favorite in the locker room, but borderline NBA player at this point.
I will add he was an Exhibit 10 signing.
There you go. Yeah, that's what I figured. The only things I'll add to that, which the reason why I threw it to Jonathan was because I knew he was going to throw his Baby Kawhi thing in there. That's what he always says. But only thing
I'm
I'll
not
add,
the only one, I promise.
I'm
really
Jonathan,
not.
I have Knicks fans that I used to fight with that called Frank Ntilikina Drew Holiday. So I'm right there with you, dog. Like
I gave up on the Baby Kawhi thing pretty early in the game, though. Yep. To be fair, yeah.
Here's the only thing we
all have our things we go through. I'm with you there. I got you.
That's right. With Chuma, I'm so glad Jonathan mentioned you have to watch him shoot. If he has a chance to play in preseason or whatever, you have to watch him, Andrew. It is one of the most awkward things to watch, and it wasn't always like that. But as he said, he'll go up and he basically pulls his hand off and shoots. Like it's the weirdest thing. And then the other thing is you need to know, because if he makes the team, I know New York is gonna grab onto this. He is a rapper. He has like rap music on Spotify.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, if he makes the roster, like Jonathan said, he's a funny guy, and this whole music thing, I guarantee you New Yorkers are going to grab onto it. I didn't say it's great, but it's something. And I feel like New Yorkers
Anomalous
are
is a banger.
Anomalous. Yeah, that's the song.
We talked beforehand that I'm a Mets fan, and they called up around June veteran infielder Jose Iglesias, who has a music name called Candelita, and he has a song called OMG that has taken the nation, like he performed it at the All-Star game, and it's like the Mets rallying cry, and they have the best record of baseball since he showed up. So like I'm here for like the 25th, or in this case the 14th man becoming a rallying cry. I would just say, and this is no disrespect for Chuma Okeke, if he is seeing significant court time at any point this season, something went terribly wrong for the Knicks, and I might just turn into a Magic fan, because you guys are probably more healthy than the Knicks are at that point if we're that far into the depth chart that he's seeing significant minutes.
Now, Andrew, switching gears a little bit here, you talked like injuries were a significant part of last season, and you all succeeded in spite of those injuries. beyond the injuries, and obviously health is always a big question mark for each team going into a new season, but what, if any, concerns do Knicks fans have with this current roster?
I love how you phrase that. Do I have, or do Knicks fans have? Because there are many a Knicks fan that has a concern with the head coach. There's many a Knicks fan that has a concern with Julius Randle. There's many a Knicks fan that is concerned. It's a weird thing with Josh Hart, because I love him. I think the Knicks, like, anytime he's been on the court the last 2 years, I feel like good things happen. Even when he's not playing super well, he's always getting like the big rebound, making the big stop, part of the big fast break, part of the big assist, the connecting pass. And also he's hit like some of the most important shots in the franchise's playoff history. High Orlando Magic, high Philadelphia 76ers. Not Orlando Magic, high Cleveland Cavaliers. Sorry. Maybe we'll get a Knicks. I was rooting for you guys the last day of the season. I wanted Knicks Magic so bad, but it didn't happen.
We did not.
Well, okay, fair. I would have looked forward to the content, is what I'll say.
Yes.
I gotta say that this is the most optimistic collectively and from a majority standpoint that I think Knicks fans have been about the team since the 90s. And even like the Boston aspect of it, I don't think a lot of us are that afraid of Boston. Maybe we should. Like, maybe those are famous last words. But even going into the playoffs last year, I picked Denver to win it all. And the Celtics ended up winning the title, and I still think Denver would have beaten them had they gotten to the finals instead of the Mavericks. And, you're the champs. You deserve that respect. You're the team to beat, and I'll treat it as such. I'm not going to pretend that I don't still have the same questions about the Boston Celtics. And while I think they were an elite regular season team, I think the Knicks are built to beat them. And so I'm at the point where these marginal concerns that I have about like center depth and rotation decisions, they're the deepest they've ever been, or the best roster they may have ever had. So any concerns I throw at you are like on a possession to possession basis. On the whole, this team is stacked, and we're excited to watch them.
Andrew, I'm curious if we turn a little bit of our attention to the Orlando Magic, obviously, what our viewers and listeners are most excited about. We had quite literally one major acquisition. I don't even know if you call it major. We basically kept the same roster intact, made one draft pick in Tristan da Silva, and then we signed a guy named Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, two-time NBA champion, coming here from Denver. I'm curious what your thoughts are. That's an upgrade for us at the two-guard position. Gary Harris was sitting there last year for the most part. Arguably his worst season of his career. We upgrade to KCP. What are your thoughts on the Magic's acquisition there?
So I love it. What's the closing lineup? So you go Suggs, KCP, Franz, Paolo, and Isaac, or pick a center?
I would right now, if the game was today, I would probably say Wendell, but
Okay.
I do think there's a chance that at some point it becomes J.I.
You guys paid a lot of money to Jonathan Isaac not to be the full-time closer. How do you guys feel about that?
See, if it was, this is where it's interesting, because I would probably lean more Jonathan Isaac than Wendell.
Okay.
Than what Jonathan just said. The ultimately depends. Like, if you're talking about closing lineup, like you need a stop to seal the game, 100%, it's always going to be Jonathan Isaac. Obviously, he's one of the best defenders in the game. If you need a bucket, yeah, you could probably argue putting Wendell out there instead. But yeah.
So it's more matchup dependent, is what you're saying.
For me, like what we saw in the playoffs this past year, right? Like the Magic tried to go to Jonathan Isaac as the full-time starting center. It didn't really work out. It looked really great in closing lineups the last few weeks of the regular season that they started to go to that. But I just don't know if my heart says yes, but what my eyes tell me last year is maybe we're not ready to see that full time. But to be honest, I'm not going to lose sleep if it is J.I. over Wendell.
So, I mean, look, that's the question about his career on the court is how many minutes can he stay on, right? And that's always been my fascination with it. Because when the Knicks, when it was like very obvious they were going to lose Hartenstein, we started to scour the market for like who's the replacement center. And then that's the amazing part about the first 2 days of free agency is we're like, all right, that center, just got signed. Oh, that center, like Goga was one of the names we were looking at because he's a CAA client. And we were like, all right, there. No, he went back to the Magic. Okay. And just, I like the Magic from a defensive standpoint. Obviously last year I told you guys how much I loved the floor they were creating. And I think you saw that in the Cavs series that, yeah, there's some moments they're going to look rough offensively, but you're never going to really blow them out. And what happened in the first two games were really close, low scoring games, and then they blew them out in game 3 when the offense kicked around. I like KCP. I think he fits Orlando perfectly. I said that as much on our free agency live stream when it happened, and it's like the thing that I thought I'm sure you guys believed this. What the Magic needed was someone that you could consistently go to for a 3-pointer, like for shooting more specifically. You didn't need bucket getters. You have your two hubs in Franz and Paolo. I also just think like naturally Franz having a better year, regressing to the mean as a shooter will just lead to a better season for the Magic. And then look, Suggs, I was big on him coming out of the draft, and then like him landing in Orlando, I thought there was a scary future where he's like a Mon Shumpert, and what he's turned himself in as a shooter has made him one of the more important players in the league, more impactful players in the league. So, I think as far as the answer to the full question, I think that the KCP addition was great, and it's a perfect fit for what the Magic needed.
Andrew, we've talked about your team. We've talked about our team. Let's talk about both of our teams here.
Let's do it.
Now, if we forget about March 8th last year, where the Knicks made the Magic look as bad as they did at any point of the season last year, the last couple of years that these two teams matching up against each other has been fairly competitive. Now, you all have made some big improvements to the roster this offseason. Let's say the Magic do end up facing the Knicks next year in the playoffs. What, if any, concerns would you have for the Knicks heading into that matchup?
So we've been very respectful about this.
Here we go.
Here
we go.
Right?
We've been on. I'm ready.
I just want to be clear. I like you guys, and
I appreciate
I love
that.
your show.
Break our heart. Go ahead.
I don't have any concerns about a matchup
Fair.
against the Orlando Magic. It's a category of one for me, and it's if they're healthy enough to play Boston. I'm not afraid of the Sixers. That's a team with Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey. And I watched the Knicks go head to head with them for 6 games, and that was a battle of the bastards. Shout out Game of Thrones. I respect the Magic. I was kind of beating the drum about that March 8th game last season when some Knicks fans were like, shouldn't we be afraid of Orlando? It's like we've played them fully healthy once this year and we allowed 73 points. I'm sorry. I'm not. It's just the reality of it. I thought the Knicks team was really stacked last year, especially if they were getting Anunoby back. And they didn't even have Anunoby for that game. That was Precious at the 4. So Precious Achiuwa, for those Magic fans who don't know who I'm talking about. I do think the Magic are a playoff team. I don't think they're a play-in team. I have them ahead of Indiana. I have them in that Cleveland conversation. I think they could put a scare into a first-round team, maybe even get to a second round. I just personally, I think this is the New York confidence that I'm talking about. This is the best team I've seen them have in. My gosh, guys! Like, I don't know if I've ever seen a Knicks team this talented, and I have to rethink my evaluation of the team as such. There's a tier that they've entered that I just have to put them in when I discuss things like this.
And to be fair, as our early conversations around the schedule in this upcoming season have developed, really the two teams that we don't really see us competing with, at least in my opinion, would be Boston and New York. If you talk about Philadelphia, Paul George and Joel Embiid are big question marks with their health. The Milwaukee Bucks, Damian Lillard is aging. How well are he and Giannis going to mesh together in that second season? Brook Lopez is, I think, 36 years old. And then we match up well against the Cavaliers. We saw that last season. Miami doesn't seem to be the team that you've grown to hate as well. The Pacers, like outside of the Celtics and the Knicks, we feel like the Magic could be right there at 3 or 4 at the end of the season.
Can I throw a bone to you guys and say if Franz does have that regression to what his career averages were as a shooter, and if Paolo takes a leap, then this is like when I have you guys on for pregame pods, this is a different conversation because they're competing for, like you said, a 3 or a 2 seed. And, that's part of the beauty of the NBA, the leaps that these younger players take, you then get to reshift your thinking. And like I'm seeing that with Jalen Brunson. It's just at first it was like, oh, this contract, how do you give a guy that's barely ever been a starter $100 million? Oh, he's nice, but the Becky Hammond conversations last year. He too little, like he too small, was her analysis of like a student to be all-star, and then he turned himself into an MVP candidate, and we saw him go head to head with Joel Embiid and win a playoff series. Like, it's the beauty of watching players take a leap that can change your perspective, which, I'm not going to rule out. I think I have high heights for Paolo. I love his game and think there's a version of him that's a perennial all NBA player. So if he continues to take that leap, maybe this is a different conversation. But as I said, I'm very high on this New York Knicks team going into the season.
We got one more for you, Andrew, and it's a question that you've essentially answered with us over the last 30, 40 minutes. But I guess if you could summarize, what does a successful season look like for the Knicks? You guys haven't been to the NBA Finals since that 99 season.
Ouch.
No.
I know. You just quoted history. You quoted history. You're good.
Right. 25 years. It's been a while, but I'm curious, like you talk about the ceiling. Is a successful season really a title? Or where would you say a successful Knicks season might be this season?
So I think that's actually the biggest fear Knicks fans have. A successful season is like, if you said it's a competitive 6-7 game series lost to Boston in the conference finals, there's no Knicks fan that can walk away from that and say that like they didn't like it's disappointing. Like the losing is of course disappointing. The season ending will hurt. But you're like, oh, this team went pretty far. I can't say that this season was a failure. I have not made any plans in June, is what I will say. I have made sure that any vacations start in July. I obviously don't have any plans to do draft analysis because the Knicks are never going to have a draft pick again. But this Knicks team, like you guys have said, you can have the conversation about the finals if you want to. And I think the finals would exceed a lot of people's expectations, but like, I don't know if you guys have a betting sponsor or not, but like all the betting markets have them in the top 5 for contenders this year, as far as like to make the finals, let alone to even win. So I'll say the conference finals for me is like the expectation. I'll be disappointed if they lose to Milwaukee or not San Antonio, Philadelphia. They lose to San Antonio. That would be a very weird season that Wemby just went rough shot and turned into, and they beat the Knicks again in the finals. Right. Talk about 99.
Yep.
But I'm not going to rule out the NBA finals, which is not a sentence I've said about the New York Knicks since, let me be honest. I didn't say that in 1999 either. So it's like, I haven't said that since the 90s. So it's a good place to be in, and I'm hoping they don't, fall short of said expectations.
Well, for what it's worth, we're not making any plans in June either. All right. I mean, we don't expect to be there, but if they somehow stumble their way,
the wee thing again.
Trust me, I know Kevin doesn't have any plans in June.
You're right.
Okay.
You're right.
Well, so Jonathan, that's the Yankee fan in you, though. That's the expectations.
That's the hopefully optimistic.
But where's that hopeful optimism come? You're a Giants fan. You watch them beat the Patriots twice. I understand the Magic have not rewarded that hopeful optimism as much.
Feels a little different.
You have places to go to. I'm a Mets fan. My season usually ends when like summer vacations start. I'm a Jets fan. My quarterback played 4 plays last season and then ran for vice president. Like, I don't have a lot of teams that reward any optimism I've ever had, which is why this Knicks thing is so weird, and I plan to enjoy it as much as possible.
Well, we hope you do, but not too much when
not
you
at the
come to
expense
Orlando.
of the Magic, right? Yeah.
That is correct. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for taking the time again. This was a lot of fun. Can you please let our listeners know where they can find your Knicks coverage?
Of course. Always a blast chatting with the Sixth Man Show, guys. Glad I finally got to do it with you on the Sixth Man Show. You can find me and all the Knicks Film School content over at nickfilmschool.com. That's Nick, spelled like the way the Knicks spell it. Film SKOOL, because we're cool like that. We have a YouTube channel, the Knicks Film School podcast, on the audio feeds. We have a Patreon if you want to sign up, and of course on all socials at Nick Film School.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Andrew.
Thanks, fellas.
All right, that was our conversation. Again, first round of our Eastern Conference preview series. That was our friend Andrew Claudio with Knicks Film School. I think the Knicks are going to be really good this year, Kevin.
Yeah, they're going to be really good. And honestly, I talked about this last year, with that Knicks team. there's this whole, I don't know if it's a stigma, but like most people outside of New York want to root against New York teams for whatever reason. And some of that's, maybe valid, like the Yankees winning, 27, whatever it is, titles. People want to root against the Yankees, obviously, huge budget, all those kinds of things. Giants, whatever. But when it comes to basketball, like the Knicks, I don't hate them. Like it's a thing. Like I've personally, we talked about, with Andrew, I love the fan base. Like I love the passion. I love what he talked about, the fact they have two of everything else, but the Knicks is like kind of this uniting factor. And I love that. And this iteration of the Knicks, I don't hate them either. Like last season, I love that they were just so scrappy that they just found a way to win in spite of all the odds that were stacked against them. I don't hate the New York Knicks. And so, obviously if they're coming up against the Magic, that's different. But outside of that, I don't mind the Knicks' success, especially because, we've become friends with Knicks Film School. And if the Knicks' success leads to Knicks Film School success, I'm all for it. But yeah, I don't hate the Knicks. I don't know if I'm supposed to, but I just don't right now.
I don't hate them. Because of the fact that I'm a Yankees fan and a Giants fan, I know a lot of Knicks fans because of that. Like a lot of Yankees fans and like a lot of Giants fans, Knicks fans can be at times delusional, a little bit abrasive, a little obnoxious, but I still don't hate them. And this might be silly, but strictly because of our relationship with Knicks Film School and Andrew specifically, when the Knicks win and the Knicks do well, I'm happy for them. So all of that goes out of the window, of course, when they play the Magic. But outside of that, I just think the NBA is more fun when the Knicks are good.
Yeah.
So this should be a fun season.
I will say, as much as we hate the national media is 100 times worse when the Knicks are good. I will say that. And more specifically, obviously, we're talking about ESPN. Like ESPN was a joke. Even I should have asked Andrew this, but like I know reading online, a lot of Knicks fans were even saying that ESPN was annoying when it comes to talking about the Knicks, especially because like Stephen A. Smith doesn't even watch the Knicks and he's over there running his mouth. But outside of that, yes.
Always.
Yeah. That's him. Yeah. Outside of that, yes, I agree. The NBA is definitely better when the Knicks are good. And I'm looking forward to seeing how good the Knicks actually are this season.
Okay, folks, that's going to do it for this one. The next several Thursdays, this is our Thursday show. The next few Thursdays, we're going to be doing this where, teams that we expect to be around the Magic in the Eastern Conference standings, we're going to be doing preview pods with people who cover those teams. So be on the lookout for that over the course of the next few Thursdays as we get ready for the NBA season and training camp, preseason, all of that stuff to get going. But like I said, that's going to do it for this one. For Kevin Tucker, this has been Jonathan Osborne. You all have been listening to The Sixth Man Show, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya.
Thanks for listening to The Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!